the first how-to video from me, how to put a Type 1 transmission in an early bay. The late bays is a little difference in the way they mount. They have a 2-point system over here, so the transmission can hang by itself, but in the early bays they are only in the front and in the back. So this is a Type 1 transmission from a Volkswagen Type 1. I prefer to use the lowest ratio transmission on the early bays, and this one is a AM, which means it's the lowest ratio transmission you can get for Type 1. I recommend this on early bays with only standard 1600 engine because of the power or lack of it. So that suits pretty well. This one will drop the RPM about 500 RPMs in fourth gear, and that's quite significant amount of RPM loss if you consider it. They are pretty low geared for this kind of cars. But this is how the original transmission look. They have an extra joint inside the transmission, so sometimes you feel like you're pouring a stick in a soup, as we say in Danish, when you change gear in the early bays. So and Type 1 is actually a joint less, so not only will you use let the RPM drop, but you also get a much smoother change in the gears, and if you are a little nerdy, RPM drop. But the first thing we have to do is, of course, get rid of all this. The next step is making the mount a little different, because this is a little different than Type 1. So you have to reuse this one, drill some new holes for this application. You can see the bolts on this one is one at the top and one at the bottom. And on Type 1 transmissions, they're a little different. So you have to re-drill the holes, not a big problem. Next problem will be when it's all mounted. This point is not the same. This is actually a little, the hockey stick is a little longer on Type 2 transmissions, and therefore you have to remake this a little bit to make it fit the Type 1. I will show you that. Next problem is this one, the drive shaft. On Type 2 they use 100mm flanges. On standard box they are 50 or 90 millimeters. So here you have two options. One, you can buy from in Danish it's called jagtvogn or kuppelwagen, if you will, from the second generation. They have a flange on 100mm that will fit this one. Just slide in. TYPE do the same. I will drop a link or a number on the one from TYPE. But you can also do another thing, because oddly or smart, or what you will call it, the drive shaft mount of flanges splines is actually the same on Type 1 or Type 2. So on this one I'm gonna take a Type 1 link and put on this shaft in both sides, so it will fit directly on the Type 1 transmission. So that will be the next step. So a little time lapse where I'm pulling the engine and transmission out, and when we can see and compare the two difference. That's it. remember when the mount is made to fit the Type 1, you have to drill a hole, 2 new holes, a little bit more forward because the transmission is a little bit shorter on a Type 1, so you have to drill.
I wish it could happen to me.
Ready to put back in. Mount fixed. Ready to go. Checks the clutch. Engaging, not anything scraping. So plug it in.
I wish it could happen to me.
Made a little bracket. And not welding, so you can always return to original. So a little bend. This is from the old Type 2 transmission, and this is just a piece of metal I got laying around. It looks like from a drive shaft. It's pretty close to fitting. So yeah, that's it. Next step.